Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. When it comes to investing, we all probably have our favorite accounts. I know I have my favorites, or maybe you're thinking, I only have one account that I invest in. What do you mean favorites? I always talk about how I love having different accounts or different buckets to draw on in retirement. And really retirement, or at the very least financial freedom, is the reason we all invest, so that one day we don't have to be so reliant on a paycheck. And your idea of retirement or financial freedom and what you want that to look like is going to be a huge driver in account choice, because different accounts have different stipulations on when and how you can access the funds in them. Before I get too far into this video, I want to give a shout out to the viewer who's the reason I'm actually making it, FishFood1348. So thank you. I really do read all the comments I get on this channel, and I try to remember the things we've chatted about. I don't know if anyone else saw this, but a couple months ago, YouTube went from displaying the username to actually displaying your handle. So I had to relearn everybody, but I think I have it all sorted out now. So about these different account types. My first account that I want to address is the brokerage account. I think we have to rewind a bit to consider how I got started investing. I started investing at a very young age. I had a grandma who was interested in the stock market, and her enthusiasm for it made me excited, and it made me want to buy my own stocks. So the fact that I was exposed to this at such a young age is absolutely invaluable. The first ever investment account I had was a brokerage account. Well, technically it was a custodial account because I was a minor, but it was transferred to me when I was 18. 18 was a big year for me, as it was also the year I opened my Roth IRA. At the time, the contribution limits were $4,000 a year. That was nearly 20 years ago. Today, the Roth contribution limits sit at $6,500, which is basically to say, I don't think these limits are growing at the rate they should be. Now, I love the Roth IRA. I'm a huge advocate for the Roth IRA. I love that the only thing you need to qualify for it is an earned income or a spouse with an earned income, because the reality is that many employers don't offer retirement plans. And just because you work for an employer that doesn't offer a retirement plan doesn't mean you shouldn't be saving for retirement. Honestly, I worked for an employer who offered almost no benefits for 13 or 14 years, no insurance, no retirement, practically nothing. So I relied very heavily on my Roth during this time as my only retirement account. And honestly, I think these accounts are wildly underutilized, as only 32% of taxpayers have a traditional IRA, and only 19% of taxpayers have a Roth IRA. I don't think it can be said enough how wonderful a tax-advantaged account is. The IRS allows this money to grow completely tax-free. When you pay taxes just depends on the type you choose, whether it's upfront or at the time of withdrawal. Consider if you contribute $500 a month with an 8% return for 40 years to an account that allows tax-free growth, or a traditional taxable account. The ending balances are quite different. Taxes matter. And while I do fund my IRA every single year, it's not my favorite account. This account comes with stipulations on when I can access the full amounts within it. And the contribution limits are pretty low. I classify myself as a super saver, so there's no way I'm going to limit my savings and investments to the Roth limits. I have aspirations that require a greater savings than that. Next, I have a number, or had a number, of traditional employer-sponsored retirement accounts, and this is from when I worked at larger companies. A simple IRA, 401k, and as a small business owner, I established my own SEP account. I'm gonna lump all of these accounts together as employer-sponsored retirement accounts. And I think these accounts are absolutely wonderful, and I take advantage of them whenever I have access to them. Again, it comes down to the same reason as the IRA. The ability to allow your money to grow completely tax-free makes a big difference in the ending balance of that account. And a lot of these accounts come with an employer match, which is bonus money, and you never want to pass that up. But still, none of these are my favorite account. While I do love that they each come with better contribution limits, which is a huge win for us super savers, they all still come with that stipulation that you don't have full access to your funds until 59 and a half, which brings us back to the beginning and how I got started investing. A simple brokerage account. This is hands down my favorite account, and the account that I prioritize. Currently, I actively contribute to 3 investment accounts: my Roth IRA, my SEP, and a traditional brokerage account. And here's how I prioritize them. I like to max out my Roth with monthly contributions from January to June. I contribute to the brokerage account every single month with a target savings rate of 40%. And at the end of the year, once I know what my total income was, I make a lump sum contribution to my SEP, which helps to reduce my tax bill. Being that I'm self-employed and my income varies from month to month, that's the sole reason I delay that SEP contribution till the end of the year. When I worked for employers with a regular paycheck, I would just contribute to the retirement plans on a bi-weekly basis throughout the year. My husband and I always have the goal of maxing out our retirement accounts. It doesn't always happen. It really just depends on the income for that year. But how we decide how much we're contributing is we sit down and look over the budget at the beginning of the year, and we decide the percent or the amount that we can put towards savings and investments. And then throughout the course of the year, we can and do make adjustments. And here's what I think might be a little surprising. If I were to break down my portfolio split between retirement and non-retirement accounts, aka that brokerage account, it would look like this: 16% in retirement accounts and 84% in a traditional brokerage account. You probably gathered this from the way I spoke about other investment accounts, but really for an account type to be my favorite, I need to have complete and unfettered access to it. And that's why I love the brokerage account. There's no age restrictions. You can access these funds at any time for any reason. But as it turns out, most people aren't using brokerage accounts. While 61% of adults invest in the stock market, only 35% said they personally owned stocks, bonds, or mutual funds outside of retirement accounts. It's my personal opinion that both of those numbers are far too low. And we can even break down stock ownership by age. I think investing in the stock market is one of the most easily accessible ways to build wealth. You can get started with very small amounts, think like $20. And then the other thing I love about brokerage accounts is that they aren't tethered to an employer in any way, which means you can invest in anything you want, whenever you want. The choice is yours. I used to be a huge FIRE proponent, financial independence, retire early, and my goal was to retire at 40. But as the years went on, my goals have since changed, and now my retirement window is more like 50, 55, maybe all the way up to 70. But largely that's because I've created a job that I love, and the way I feel is if you love what you're doing, why retire? However, to be honest, my parents are older. They're in their 70s, and I recently went to visit them, and this was the first time I ever saw age-related health issues, and it was completely heartbreaking, which forced me to kind of rethink things. I thought maybe working till 70 was too long. Maybe for me it'll be 50, 55, and that'll be it. Honestly, I don't know, but we only get so much time, so I want to make the most of it. But as long as I'm using brokerage accounts, all doors are open to me. And I fully expect that I'll change my mind on this subject a lot throughout the course of the years. I'm not saying I have anything figured out. Okay, but what about that tax-free growth that comes with retirement accounts? Doesn't that make them better? Well, maybe, but I'm an indexer. That is to say, I buy low-cost index funds that track the market. And my area of focus is the stock market. And historically, index funds have outperformed actively managed funds. Then we can consider the fees. The rock bottom fees charged by low-cost brokerage houses ensure that you will keep more of your money. I deliberately choose low-cost investment vehicles. That may not be an option with all employer-sponsored retirement plans. That gives me more flexibility to invest the way I want to. And finally, we have to consider the style of investing. Again, I'm an indexer. There is very low turnover. I make my investment and then I let it sit for, well, ever. So by the time I reach retirement in 40 or 50 years, a lot of these investments will be right where they originally were. Not only does this help to reduce my annual tax burden, but by the time that I need to make those withdrawals, these withdrawals will be subject to long-term capital gains rates. And based on our anticipated withdrawals, as my husband and I do file jointly, these are very favorable rates. How we anticipate funding our retirement is a mixture of a pension and investment withdrawals. At this time, we don't consider Social Security and look at that as potentially icing on the cake. And the other major perk of brokerage accounts is that they can offer great interest rates on your cash, which can make a big difference in environments like we're currently in, where we have some pretty alluring interest rates. If you have your savings or your emergency fund sitting at one of the big banks, right now you're probably earning next to nothing in interest. However, if you were to move this savings or your emergency fund to a money market fund, a very stable fund with a low-cost brokerage house, you would be earning very competitive market rates. And if you already have an account there, it's a very easy move to make. My priority when it comes to investing is to make use of multiple accounts because they all have their own unique advantages. And while I say that brokerage accounts are my favorite because they are, I still make use of multiple different accounts. I'm not saying to only use brokerage accounts. I just love the freedom that comes with them because with this freedom means I have more doors and more options that are open to me. What's your favorite account type? Leave your answer in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And if you know someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.